Hi there, it's Scott with Eat, Love, Pray RV. I'm dressed up a little more warm than I have in the last videos. We're up here in upstate New York now, and the weather's changing. So with that, we're excited to experience a little cooler temperatures and some change in some leaves and just see the beauty that's up here in upstate New York. We've never been here, so I will be excited to report back to you on this adventure as well. Today I want to talk to you about Pennsylvania. We were in Pennsylvania a little over a week ago, and we spent some time down there and wanted to share with you just a couple things that we did. One, I want to share with you as usual where we stayed and how that was. Give you some ideas there if you're planning on heading to Pennsylvania. We stayed in western Pennsylvania over by Somerset. We entered through Ohio, the upper part of Ohio, stayed on the eastern side of Pennsylvania, and then we migrated over to Hershey, Pennsylvania, which was a really, really cool experience. I'm excited to tell you about both of those. The western side of Pennsylvania was a little bit of a surprise to us. We added that to our trip. We have a family friend that lives there, moved there about a year ago, and we wanted to see her and her husband. So we thought, hey, we'll be in the area, we'll be close, we'll dip down into Somerset, Pennsylvania, see them. And what a nice surprise that we had with some of the attractions around there, specifically the Flight 93 attraction that they have, the memorial there, and I'll share with you a little bit about that. But let me start off and tell you where we stayed. We stayed at Cooser State Park. I'm not sure how you say it exactly. I'll spell it down here so that you have the correct information if you're interested. I mentioned on many videos we really have enjoyed state and city parks. This was a state park. Our four priorities wherever we're staying is one, that it's got to be convenient. The second thing is it's got to be safe. It's got to be budget friendly, and then we like it to be dog friendly. So this accomplished all of those. It was a great state park. We like state parks because they're typically well ran. They're taken care of very nicely. They've got state employees that do that, so there's the funds that are there to take care of the facilities. They're safe. Typically, you'll see either local police or rangers driving through, keeping things safe, which was the case here. It had full hookups, which is always nice. For us, we're primarily focused on electricity. If we have electricity, that's really the only thing that causes us any type of stress is if we having to run the air conditioner or the heaters and something is a drain on your batteries. So the electricity is our main concern, but this one had full hookup, so that turned out great. So some things that we liked about staying at this state park is it was very well taken care of. It was very empty. We find that during the week these state parks clear out quite a bit, and that was the case here. So we only stayed a couple of nights. But it was very, very nice and open, big trees. I will tell you, we got a tip from our friend. If you have dogs, we do have dogs, two of them, Gus and Chloe, as you know. And this is one of the highest concentrations of Lyme disease through ticks in the Pennsylvania area. From what I hear, as we continue to go east, we're going to run into that more and more. I believe the Lyme disease was actually originated from Lyme, Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. So we're aware of the challenges that exist, and we're taking precautions, and we've got the tick medicine put on Gus. We've done that for a couple of months now, just to be as a precaution. So we really enjoyed the state park. It was wide open, had lots of grass. This particular one, I think sometimes whoever makes these, they don't understand. They might have not owned an RV and realize how tricky it can be to level one of these. So when they're off just a couple of inches front to back, left to right, it can add a whole new element to your setup and your prep time getting your rig set up. So that was the case here. We originally started out with one spot number 9, and it was a beautiful spot, but it was not real level, so we moved over to spot 17, and it was a little bit better, but still I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a perfectly flat spot in this state park. But it's not bad. It's and especially if you're only staying for a couple of days, really not bad at all. Great park, lots of big trees, lots of grass, very quiet. You actually drive down a few hundred yards down a tree-lined road to get back to where you're going to stay. And they've got somebody living there full time in a cabin there at the beginning of the road. So, and very, very safe, very, very comfortable. And it was on the budget-friendly side of things as well. So we enjoyed that. Well, we set up camp, we hopped in the Honda Element, and we headed to the Flight 93 Memorial, and that was such a pleasant surprise. We've been to a lot of memorials. I have a great appreciation for our country, and I'm very patriotic, so I like anything to do with history or military, anything like that that revolves or involves our country. So we went over to the Flight 93 Memorial. It's in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, so it's about a 30-minute drive. It's a little deceiving when you get into this part of the country because the miles don't dictate, well, I guess they do dictate how far the drive is, how long it is, but they definitely don't add up. Usually back in the West where I'm from, if it's 30 miles away, it's going to take you, roughly 30 or 40 minutes. Not the case over here as we head east. You're doing a lot of country roads or county roads, and a lot of times a 20-minute commute will take you 45 minutes to an hour. So it took us about 40 minutes to get there, maybe 45 minutes. But as you drive in, it's just a beautiful approach, and you're visiting the site that one of the 4 aircrafts during the 9/11 of 2001, where it went down. So you obviously had 2 hit the World Trade Centers. You had 1 hit the Pentagon, and this Flight 93 was suspected that it was going to be aimed at the White House. And there were 44 passengers on board. 4 of them were the hijackers. 40 of them were either crew members or passengers. And through the heroic efforts of those 40 individuals, they brought down this plane. And I like it when we pull into a memorial and we really don't know a lot about what's going on. So I haven't researched Flight 93 in depth. I do have a family friend that had a college classmate that was on that flight, and so I was intrigued for a number of reasons, for the history side of things, the patriotic side of things, and for the fact that I had a friend that had a friend that was on this particular flight. So you get there, and they've got a nice building. It's everything is understated. It is it's just worked into the landscape very, very well, and it's probably one of the best memorials I've ever been to. And why I say best, because it's very somber going to memorials many times, and this one was no different. But they did such a great job of tastefully and respectfully telling you the story and capturing what happened, and doing it in a very, very mild manner to where it felt natural. The visitor center is up on a hill a bit. It really does capture through a couple of windows where the approach was. They've got a long path that you walk out to look at where the impact of the plane was, and they've really done a great job. There's a wall down there with the names of all of the victims, and the 40 victims that were on that flight, and that shows you the flight path. And they've got a 17-ton boulder that shows you the resting area of where the impact happened, and it hit with such velocity that I think the biggest part of the plane was about 5 or 6 feet, was the biggest piece that they found. So it hit at 563 miles per hour, and obviously you can understand the damage that did to the structure and everything in the structure of the aircraft. But they've done such a great job of allowing you to understand what happened that day. Inside there's a number of story walls that are very well laid out. They're kind of like different chapters of a book, if you would. They've got some audio recordings that I highly recommend listening to. One of them, they've got 3 voice recordings that 3 of the passengers left for their family members or loved ones. And it really captures the moment for you. It really sets the tone. of what happened. So I would suggest going in first to that information center, walking through that. That's going to take you about 30 minutes. That really kind of sets the tempo for your emotions and for the time that you're going to be there. Go through that. You get a real good sense and understanding of what happened there that day and what you're looking at. It ends in there with a big picture window, and it's looking out over a field that goes down to where the impact was, and the wildflowers that are out there are just beautiful. It's peaceful. It's just a wonderful experience to pay your respects to the 40 men and women that gave their lives that day. So then you go outside. You're going to go down the path. You're on the upper level, let's call it, and you're going to be able to walk to the end of this long path, and it's going to show you how that flight path was and what you're looking at. It gives you a little bit of a map there of what you're looking at and what happened. And now you're going to hop in your vehicle and you're going to drive. It's about a quarter-mile drive down there. There's a parking lot, there's restrooms, there's another outdoor exhibit, and then you kind of walk into this field, and they've got this wonderful path that's leading out to the wall that has the 40 names on there, and the wooden gate that they've got that's a symbol out there. The wall is a symbol, the gate's a symbol, and it all picture frames the boulder that's out there, the 17-ton boulder. But as you're walking, you get to read some things that are engraved on the wall. There's some wonderful benches to sit there, just kind of capture the moment. And if you're so inclined, you can actually, instead of walking down to that location, instead of driving down, you can walk down. And it is an absolutely beautiful pathway with a big long wooden bridge that you walk across to get down there if you want to. But if you don't feel like walking that quarter mile, or if you're unable to, then you can definitely drive down to the lower location. So they've done a great job with the Flight 93 Memorial. I would highly encourage you going there. It's in Shanksville, such a peaceful setting, very rural, small town, lots of trees, rolling hills, farms. Just a really, really, really great memorial and a great opportunity to pay respects for what the 40 men and women did that day. So let me shift gears now, and let's move to something a little bit more upbeat. From Somerset, we drove over to Hershey. We stayed just outside of Hershey in a little town called Grantville. Now, when you go over near Hershey, you've got a lot of little towns around there, and you've got Lancaster that's not far from there. So we did, in fact, do Lancaster. It wasn't our favorite. We went down there for the day. It was supposed to be it is a big Amish community, but once we got down there, it was a little more, a little bit more modernized than what we had thought, and it was just, to us, it felt like just a bigger city. We got a great experience of Amish country back in Indiana. If you want to watch the Middlebury, Indiana episode, we spent a little over a week in that community, and it's very heavily Amish and Mennonite, and we really, really loved that. So that one was tough to beat for us. So Lancaster wasn't one of our favorites, not saying that it wouldn't be your favorite, but we really enjoyed our time at Hershey, and that was the bright spot for us down in that area. So we stayed at a Harvest Host. I've got a video also on Harvest Host. If you're not a Harvest Host and Boondockers Welcome member, I would strongly encourage that if that's your style of travel. Watch that video. It'll share with you a little bit about what to expect and how it all works, but we really enjoy it. We try to pepper in some of the Harvest Hosts to help us stay on track with our budget. Again, that's kind of fun as you set this budget, trying to stay within it and stay in some upper scale, higher end RV spots at certain times, and then obviously try to save a little bit by staying through Harvest Host. So we stayed at Ace's Barbecue. It was in Grantville, Pennsylvania, and it was wonderful. There was 5 of us there, 5 RVers there. It was a great spot. We ate there twice, had good barbecue, really enjoyed that. So we stayed there a couple of nights and went into Hershey. So let me explain to you what you're going to experience if you go into Hershey, and at least do what we did. We knew very little about that town except for obviously the name is associated with chocolate, and we like chocolate. So Becky especially likes chocolate, one of her love languages for sure. And so we decided to go in there and go, first of all, to the Hershey Museum, or the Hershey Story Museum. And I'm really glad that we started there. I knew very little about Hershey. I knew nothing about Milton Hershey, who was actually the founder. And we were very, very impressed and enjoyed how they did this museum. I'm very thankful for these companies that take the time and effort to do these right. We went in, we got there just after they opened, and the museum is upstairs, and it'll take you, we were probably about an hour to go through the museum. And I guess I should go back and tell you real quick. We were about an hour to an hour and a half going through the Flight 93 Memorial. So I would schedule about an hour, hour and a half if you're going to do that. The Hershey Museum, going through the museum itself took us about an hour. But again, we're the type that we like to watch every video. We like to read every board that's in there. We really want to get an understanding of what we're looking at. So here's the things that I really was surprised by with Milton Hershey. What a fantastic human being. We need more Milton Hersheys in this world. I was just so surprised at some of the generosity, how innovative he was, the failures that he went through. He went through 3 major failures, business failures in life before he hit something, that was worthwhile. That first something was a caramel company. He was into caramels and wound up selling that, sold that for a fortune that a lot of people would have just stepped away and said, okay, let's go play golf for the rest of our days. But he didn't. He took all of that and invested it into chocolate. And at the time, chocolate wasn't something that the middle class or below could enjoy. It was something that more affluent families enjoyed. It was very expensive to produce, and it wasn't real common. So he was able to change that. He found methods and ways to produce it that were much more efficient, much more cost-friendly, and because of that, now we have chocolate readily available at a very affordable price. So he married a gal named Kitty, and Kitty was a little bit younger than he was, but she got sick right after they were married, and unfortunately passed away at 43 years old. So Milton Hershey continued to grow his empire, and as his empire grew, so did the number of people that he had working for him. And before you know it, he's got literally a town of people that work for him at his factory. Biggest chocolate factory in America, probably in the world at that time, and had a number of workers. And here's what I love about Milton Hershey, is he realized that it wasn't all about work. It was about having some fun and taking care of your family. I worked for a man and a family for almost 30 years that was that way. In fact, he used the analogy of a 3-legged milk stool, that in business you have to take care of the customer, you have to make a little money, and you have to have a little fun. Milton Hershey got that. He created from the early onset a number of things, or from the onset early on, a number of things for his employees, to include a dance hall, a water park, a golf course, many things that would allow them to have a work-life balance that was enjoyable. These employees were incredibly dedicated to him, and it shows as you go through there. There's one point where you hear of a strike. Part of the workers started a strike, and the other workers went out and ended that strike. Unfortunately, they ended it forcefully, but nonetheless, they basically went out and said, hey, we're getting back to work. You're not going to mess this up for everybody else. Now, in Milton Hershey fashion, he went ahead and worked with those disgruntled workers to help them to make a compromise and to be flexible with them over time and do some of the things that they wanted him to change. But what a great museum it was. We really learned a lot about Milton Hershey. We learned a lot about he started schools there. Obviously, you're a town, you got to have schools. Hershey High School, it's still there today. You've got an elementary school and a middle school. They had a full range of activities for the kids, from a marching band to all of the sports that they were engaged in. So really a great experience for us going through that museum. So a couple of fun things about that museum experience. As you go outside, you will see the light posts are Hershey's Kisses. They really are, right down there, down the main street. You look up and there's chocolate-covered Kisses, and there's foil-wrapped Kisses that are the light poles there in town. So that's pretty cool to see. That's pretty fun. And going through the museum, we just got a great understanding of who this man was and what he did. His highlight, I think, would be that he and his wife never could have children, or never did have children, but they had a love for children. Specifically, they tried to help a lot of orphaned boys, and started an orphan school and supported many endeavors there, and for kids in general. And I just think it's a beautiful story that for a couple that couldn't have kids that wanted them, they helped a number of kids that wanted parents that couldn't have them. And he wound up donating, at the time, over $60 million, his whole fortune, to help these orphan kids and help those efforts even after he was gone. Now here's the big beauty of that, is he did it in silence. It took 5 years. 5 years later, the media uncovered what he had done. It took 5 years. He didn't go out and tout it or make a big deal about himself. He did it in silence, and I thought that was one of the best things. So that experience going through that museum was great. We really enjoyed it. We had a great time. We learned a lot about Milton Hershey, which hello, how are you?
Awesome.
Good.
How can you be bad today? Come on.
That's right. Sorry about that. I've got a friendly fellow RVer walking by, and they don't know what I'm doing, so but anyway, such a great experience that we had there at Hershey. Great experience in Pennsylvania. Somerset is where we stayed at first. We went to the Flight 93 Memorial, then we moved down to Grantville, which is just outside of Hershey, and went to the Hershey Museum. So we also dipped down and saw Lancaster, as I mentioned, but we really enjoyed the main two venues that we went to: the Flight Museum, or the Flight 93 Memorial, and the Hershey Museum. And I would encourage you to add that to your map if you're heading in the direction of Pennsylvania. Great experience. Thanks again for joining today. If you've got any questions or ideas or suggestions for us, elprv23@gmail.com. That's my email, and I would love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate you doing that. I've got a number of videos I'm going to be doing here coming up that are some other places that we've stopped. I'll recap our visit to New York. I've got some kind of tips and tricks of some things that we've learned, some challenges that we've encountered on the trail here that have been some easy fixes for the RV, which are helpful. I think if you're RVing, you're going to run into some of those things, and so hopefully the videos that I'm doing are helpful and useful. And I appreciate your time today. Hope you have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you on future videos. Thanks.